statement on Iran in which the Secretary General said he was shocked by the reports of violence and excessive use of force by the Iranian authorities against protesters in multiple locations across the Islamic Republic of Iran. This resulted in scores of deaths and many more injuries to protesters. All Iranians must be able to express their grievances peacefully and without fear of repression. The rights to freedom of expression, freedom of association, and freedom of peaceful assembly, as enshrined in international law, must be respected and fully protected. The Secretary General urges the Iranian authorities to exercise maximum restraint and to refrain from unnecessary or disproportionate use of force. He further urges steps to enable access to information in the country, including restoring communications links. You have been asking me, a number of you, about Sudan and notably the activities of the Secretary General's personal envoy, Ramtam Lamamra. I can tell you that Mr. Lamamra is currently in Cairo until January 15th, and that is to attend the 5th Sudan Consultative Group meeting, which is being hosted by Egypt. The meeting will provide an opportunity for renewed and coordinated international engagements to advance peacemaking efforts in Sudan. On the margins of the meeting, Mr. Lamamra will engage with key regional and international partners. We continue to work closely with all of these partners to support a coordinated approach to ending the conflict in Sudan. And on the ground, things are not getting better. Our humanitarian colleagues warn that escalating insecurity in the Kordofan region is placing civilians under increasing strain, disrupting health services, and triggering a new wave of displacements. In the city of Dilling in South Kordofan State, a medical association in Sudan tells us that 3 major hospitals are now out of service amidst ongoing shelling, and that 4 doctors have reportedly been killed. Continued insecurity and siege-like conditions have severely restricted access to life-saving assistance for civilians trapped in that city. We once again call on all parties to immediately stop attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure. We call on them to respect international humanitarian law, and we call on them to ensure rapid, safe, and unhindered and sustained humanitarian access anywhere in Sudan to all those who need it, and a lot need it. Violence continues to force families to flee. The International Organization for Migration is telling us that more than 2,200 people were displaced last week from the locality of Abbasia in the state capital, Kadugli. And that's all in South Kordofan State. These people were moving towards White Nile State. Local partners further indicate that families displaced from North Kordofan State continues to arrive in Gedaref, in Khartoum, and River Nile State. These areas hosting the displaced families are reaching a breaking point. Last week, our colleague Denise Brown, who, as you know, is our humanitarian resident coordinator in Sudan, led an assessment mission to Al-Afat camp in northern state, where authorities report that the camp has reached its full capacity of 3,000 households. Between 60 and 80 new families continue to arrive at the camp each day, and they arrive from Darfur and the Kordofan regions. Conditions in the camp, as you can imagine, are harsh. Sanitation capacity is severely limited, with only about 100 latrines available against an estimated need of 800 of these latrines. Local authorities further report that nearly 80,000 displaced families have now hosted across northern state, placing severe strain on food, health, water, education, and sanitation services, and exposing women, children, and older people and persons with disabilities to heightened risk. OCHA urgently appeals for additional funding so our humanitarian partners can scale up life-saving assistance and help avert an even deeper humanitarian catastrophe across Sudan. In 2026, our partners hope to help about 20 million people through the $2.9 billion Humanitarian Needs Fund and Response Plan. A quick update on the travels of our friend Jean-Pierre Lacroix, the head of our Peace Operations Department. As you know, he's in the Middle East. He is today in Jordan, in Amman. He met there with Jordanian authorities and discussed peacekeeping-related issues, including obviously the regional situation. Prior to being in Jordan, he concluded a visit to the Golan, where he met members of the UN Disengagement Force who patrol the Golan, and he was also briefed on the situation on the ground and the operational priorities of the force. Mr. Lacroix also exchanged views with community members in Quneitra on how the UN mission can continue to support them in these very challenging times for civilians there. During his stop in Damascus, he met with Syrian authorities and reaffirmed the UN peacekeepers' commitment to continuing to carry out their important mandate. Mr. Lacroix is also going to Israel, where he will visit the headquarters of UNSO, the UN Truce and Supervision Organization, and I assume he will have other meetings. And in terms of Syria itself, you've been asking me, and I think it was you, Edie, about our engagement and response in Aleppo, and I can confirm that we continue to follow the situation closely and remain engaged with all relevant parties. We are aware of the reports of casualties and injuries and underscore once again the imperative for protecting civilians as well as the infrastructure that they use. As of yesterday, our partners tell us that approximately 119,000 people have been displaced since renewed hostilities in Aleppo City. UNHCR and other partners on the ground are providing assistance to displaced families in temporary shelters and host communities. Support includes the distribution of blankets, mattresses, and much-needed winter clothing. We urge all parties to ensure the safety and the protection of civilians amidst the ongoing hostilities that we're seeing in Aleppo. Immediate measures are needed to prevent harm, guarantee safe passage for those fleeing, and uphold humanitarian principles. And turning to Gaza, our humanitarian colleagues tell us that the humanitarian situation there remains dire as harsh weather conditions are jeopardizing the progress made by the humanitarian response. To help address the immense shelter needs during the past week, our partners delivered supplies to 28,000 families, including 1,600 tents, 16,000 tarpaulins, and 27,000 blankets. They warn, however, that 1.1 million people still urgently need help as rainstorms continue to damage and destroy many existing shelters. Our partners stress that tents remain a temporary solution and more supplies are needed, including toolkits, cement, and heavy machinery to clear debris, as well as sustained funding to transition from emergency to early recovery efforts. Children continue to be severely affected by the cold temperatures and the harsh weather. Since the start of the ceasefire in this year's end, at the end of this year, our partners were able to distribute more than 310,000 children winter's clothing sets and more than 112,000 pairs of shoes as part of the winterization efforts. They also installed 150 specialized tents across Gaza to be used as child-friendly and safe spaces. Meanwhile, our partners leading on addressing malnutrition report that last month they screened 76,000 children and identified about 4,900 cases of acute malnutrition, including more than 820 cases of severe acute malnutrition. This brings the total number of acute malnutrition cases identified in 2025 to nearly 95,000. Our education partners continue to expand their presence with 18 additional temporary learning spaces opening their doors last week to about 35,000 students. The total number of operational temporary learning spaces is now 440, accommodating about 268,000 children. Our partners say that education supplies continue to be denied entry by the Israeli authorities on the grounds that education is not a critical activity during the first phase of the ceasefire. We do believe that it is critical activity. OCHA continues to call for rapid, sustained, and unimpeded access to allow ourselves and our partners to scale up assistance faster to prevent further deterioration and alleviate the suffering of people in Gaza. Quick update from Venezuela, where a shipment of about 40 metric tons of medical cargo arrived in Venezuela from the government of Brazil. Our colleagues from the Pan American Health Organization, which, as you know, is the regional arm of WHO, say the delivery, which arrived late Friday, include essential medicine and dialysis material needed to maintain treatment for patients who need it. It's the first installment of a package totaling up to 300 metric tons coordinated with Venezuelan health authorities. This follows the events on January 3rd when a warehouse used to store renal treatment stock was destroyed. The facility had held roughly 3 months' worth of material for 8,000 patients, which is the equivalent of about 100,000 dialysis sessions per month. Pajo says in Venezuela thanked Brazil for its support and indicated that the arrival of this shipment will help prevent treatment interruptions and while longer-term replenishment planning continues. Just want to note that today in Kenya, on his first official visit as the High Commissioner for Refugees, Barham Saleh called for stronger global support to develop the solutions refugees need to rebuild their lives. Speaking in Nairobi after visiting Kakuma municipality in northern Kenya, the High Commissioner acknowledged Kenya's decades-long generosity in hosting refugees and far-sighted policies that allow refugees to work and access health care and education, as well as financial services. Last year, less than a quarter of UNHCR's needs-based budget for Kenya was funded. Mr. Saleh warned that the funding crisis is threatening lives and risks reversing the hard-won progress made. Quick note from our peace-building colleagues. As part of the Secretariat's current efforts on efficiencies, a unified peace-building, peace support office under the Department of Political and Peace-Building Affairs and Peace Operations has been established and is operational as of today. The Peace-Building and Peace Support Office, which the Secretary General said would be a center of excellence on prevention, peace-building, and peace support, will ensure that security gains are reinforced by institutions and development. The General Assembly endorsed the proposal to integrate DPPA's Peace-Building Support Office with 3 offices from the former Office of Rule of Law, security institutions under the Department of Peace Operations. More information should you want it. New resident coordinator to announce, our colleague Vladanka Andreeva of North Macedonia assumed her role as UN resident coordinator in Cambodia following the agreement from the government. She brings over 25 years of experience in international development, humanitarian coordination, strategic advocacy, and many other things. She was most recently the humanitarian coordinator in Azerbaijan, and we congratulate her on her new post. Finally, some cash is coming in. Not to you, to me, I guess, in a certain way. As you know, beginning of every year, the Secretary General sends out assessment letters to member states to remind them that they have dues to pay, and they should pay them on time. And we're very happy to report that 9 countries have made it to the honor roll for 2026. To be on this year's honor roll, member states must make their full contributions to the regular budget by February 8th, 2026. So I know all the permanent missions that are watching are taking their checkbooks out. Needless to say that given the current financial situations, we strongly encourage all member states to pay their full assessments in full and on time. And the top of the honor roll today goes to Armenia, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the Dominican Republic, Hungary, Kazakhstan, Kuwait, Poland, Portugal, and Ukraine. Congratulations to them for having reached for their wallets immediately. And I think that's it. Edie.
Thank you, Steph. A couple of follow-ups on Iran. First, has the Secretary General been talking to anyone in the senior leadership of Iran?
No, he has not. As you know, communications are quite challenging now. As soon as I have something to report, I will share that with you.
Does the United Nations have staff in Iran? And if so, what's their status?
Yeah, we have a country team. They are, I think some of them are working from home, but everyone is safe and accounted for.
And on a completely different subject, has the United States received any official notification from the United States about the withdrawals?
No. Deji, then Gabriel.
A follow-up on Edie's question, since it's a little bit difficult for Secretary General to contact anybody so far with the high-ranking Iranian officials, is he planning to do so or receive any requests?
As I said, I will let you know as soon as there's something to report to you.
We know that President Trump, he hinted there might be some very strong options of military intervention on the situation in Iran. What is the Secretary General's response to this potential intervention?
Look, I think the Secretary General has been very clear in the use of his language under what is actually going on in Iran and the repression and the killings of civilians that we're seeing, which is very concerning to say the least. At the same time, he's also been listening to the rhetoric that we've heard around the situation in Iran, which is concerning to him, and he encourages all to adopt a path of diplomacy and dialogue.
Would foreign intervention be helpful?
I'm not, as you know, we push for dialogue. We want to see the Iranians who wish to protest peacefully to do so. And I think the charter is very clear on your question.
I also have a very completely different issue here. According to New York Times a recent report that since the ceasefire deal, after 2 months, Israel has been demolishing Gaza buildings, more than 2,500. Is the UN familiar with the situation? And
we're familiar with the situation in Gaza, given that we have not left the side of the Gazan people.
What's the reaction of the Secretary General on this
We want to
demolition?
see a stop to the destruction of whatever remains in Gaza. We want to see the parties move towards phase 2 to try to rebuild, whether it's physically or mentally, the situation in Gaza. Gabriel.
Thanks, Steph. Excuse me. One on Gaza and one on Sudan. On Gaza, you noted that the UN and your partners have roughly 440 temporary learning sites open. However, Israel, if I heard you correctly, Israel is still denying educational supplies into Gaza. Is that correct?
That's exactly what I said.
And what exactly educational supplies do you mean in
I
general?
think my understanding is it's stuff you need to run a classroom, whether it's blackboards, if those things are still used, and kits for students. You know, we have our colleagues at UNICEF are well versed, and other agencies in bringing kind of minimum kits to help students get back on track. But I can try to get you more detail.
And the justification that you read out that Israel is giving is that it doesn't qualify or is not necessary under the ceasefire agreement at this stage. Is it safe to assume the Secretary General disagrees with that justification?
I hope he does disagree, because I just said that we disagree. So let's hope there's no daylight between myself and my boss.
Fair point. Can I
Zara.
get one on Sudan real quick?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thanks. Just on Sudan, the government announced that they've moved back. Does the Secretary General have any comment on that, and how will that potentially affect the humanitarian work that you guys do?
Well, obviously, it's not for us to comment. Khartoum is the capital. It's normal that the government want to move back its operation to its own capital. As you know, we have been going in and out of Khartoum to try to see if we can regain some of the property that was there, to start to work there. As far as I know, Ms. Brown is still based in Port Sudan, but we have staff in Khartoum. And obviously, the sooner we can return to Khartoum in a safe environment or less dangerous environment, we will do so. Zara.
Thank you, Steph. Iran's mission has sent a letter to the Secretary General and the Security Council regarding foreign interference and threats by the U.S., especially President Trump's statement against Iran and incitement to violence. And today, Iran's foreign minister also said that we have extensive documents and evidence indicating U.S. and Israel involvement in terrorist activities inside Iran. Do the threats by the U.S. constitute a violation of the UN Charter? What is the Secretary General position on this matter?
The letter, no doubt, will be circulated as requested, and I think, as I just told Deji, we're very concerned by the rhetoric, the warlike rhetoric that we've heard from various parties around the situation in Iran, and we call for a return to dialogue. Miriam.
Two follow-ups on Iran, Steph. Given the internet shutdown and the lack of access, how the UN is independently verifying reports of killings and arrests, and do you believe the real numbers are much higher of the protesters who were killed by the Islamic Republic?
Our human rights colleagues have different ways of getting information, which they're using. We've been able to stay in touch with our own colleagues through electronic means. It's not been easy, and it's been off and on. We don't have a hard number that we can verify ourselves, but it is clear to us that a number of people, a number of civilians have been killed.
One more question. Just to be clear, does the Secretary General consider the use of lethal force against protesters in Iran is a violation of international human rights?
It is. There is an inherent right for people to protest peacefully. In law enforcement operations, and we've talked about this in various places around the world, law enforcement needs to protect people who want to demonstrate peacefully. If there is violence, the use of force needs to be proportionate, which is not something that we have seen from what we see. David.
Thanks, Steph. Going back to Ukraine and today's Security Council meeting, I did not see, and perhaps I missed it, a reaction from the Secretary General on the usage of the type of ballistic missiles, nuclear-ready missiles in Ukraine over the weekend. Could you please give a...
Sure. I mean, it's a very concerning and worrying development, and as I mentioned, Ms. DiCarlo will address that this afternoon in her Security Council briefing. Islam.
Thank you, Stefan. I have two questions, one on Gaza and one on Syria. On Gaza, local authorities stated that 21 displaced Palestinians have died due to extreme cold, 18 of them children, and the last one is 1 week old infant. Do you get any restrictions still, especially getting winter supply to Gaza? And also, second question related with this, Israel had announced banning private NGOs, close to the 50, I believe, the number. Does this also affect entering the winter supply to the Gaza?
Well, I mean, the banning of international NGOs, which we addressed in a statement about a bit more than a week ago, doesn't help our humanitarian operation. It makes things that much more difficult. Whether it's in Gaza or in many other places around the world, the UN humanitarian machine relies heavily on our NGO partners, both local and international, especially in terms of the sort of last mile delivery. So anything that hinders the ability for those international NGOs to operate does not make our life any easier, and it makes life worse for the civilians in Gaza who need humanitarian help. As we've been saying, we've been able to get clothing in, we've been able to get tents in, though not as many as we can. There still remains a lot of hurdles which we'd like to see removed.
And on Syria, Syrian media reported that Israeli forces carried out new ground incursion in the Syria's southern border, southern countryside, actually, right after the UN delegation visited the area. So how do you read this incursion? What's your reaction to Israelis' daily incursion?
I will check with our colleagues at UNDOF because I haven't seen those reports, but we'll check. Sinan.
Thank you, Steph. First thing first, from Spot Press Co-op. Two questions, if you don't mind. The first one is HTS forces affiliated with Damascus threw the dead body of a Kurdish female fighter from a building. I am sure you saw that footage. Does the Secretary General view this as a war crime or as a crime against humanity? What's his...
To be honest, I have not seen that report or that footage, but obviously what you tell me is very concerning. I'll look into it.
Second question, the HTS transitional government, whatever you call, committed 3 massacres against the minorities. When we go back to the march, we saw a massacre against Alawites, and since then 50 women have been kidnapped. I mean, there is still no report on that. And then when we go to the South Syria, we see a massacre against Druze and now the Kurds. So after all these things, does Secretary General have confidence in the inclusivity of Jolani's and his government?
As we've said, there still needs to be a lot of work done on inclusivity. We've heard the statements from the interim president calling for inclusivity, sending out inclusive messages. We'll continue to work with the government, but our message is clear that all Syrians, whether Druze, Alawites, Christians, Sunni, Shiite, or any other minority, need to feel safe and need to be protected by their government. And in Syria, as anywhere else, if crimes have been committed, there will need to be accountability, and there are a number of UN mechanisms working on that.
Last one, if you don't mind, very quick one. How concerned is Secretary General about the safety of minorities in Syria?
Well, we continue to be concerned because we're seeing the news every day. Yes, please.
Thank you, Steph. Our question is also on Iran. You mentioned that the Security General expressed shock at the scale of the destruction and protests in Iran right now. When the UN sanctions were reimposed through the snapback mechanism last September, was the Secretariat aware that these measures eventually and inevitably would trigger the level of economic and social turmoil we are seeing right now? Or was this like an unforeseen consequence?
Listen, whether it's you as a journalist or us at the UN, I mean, we're aware of the situation. No one can predict what can happen. What we're seeing now is what we're expressing our opinion on the ground.
Just a quick follow-up, please. On the same topic, Goldman Sachs has warned that states like Iran can now adapt to sanctions through gold and de-dollarized trade, which gives the regime a financial backdoor that the ordinary people of Iran, in this case, don't have, unfortunately. So is the UN concerned that it is enforcing an old sanctions model that can't keep up with what the state is doing, but unfortunately is very destructive for the people?
Look, we have always, and this has been going on for a while, expressed our concern about sanctions that tend to hurt more people than leaders anywhere around the world. And we expressed our concern about unilateral sanctions as well. What is important, and every government has the responsibility to ensure the well-being of their people, whether it's physically or economically. Pan, and then we'll go here.
Thank you, Steph. You mentioned just now that 8 countries have paid their dues to the United Nations this year for 2026. Do you have the number how many countries have not paid their dues for 2025, and which countries? Thank you.
Yes, we can share that list with you. It's publicly available. Yes, sir.
Thank you. On North Korea, DPRK mission last night denounced the event MSMT teams for the afternoon, planned for this afternoon at the UN. Do you have any response to that?
Sorry, they denounced what?
Sanction monitoring team, MSMT's event, planned for this afternoon at the UN.
I don't know about the event. I can look into it. Alex.
Thanks, Steph. There have been some reports suggesting Venezuela's Machado will be in the United States on Thursday. Is there any chance the Secretary General will meet with her?
I have not seen anything on his schedule, but we will inquire. Secretary General's door is always open to people. Sinan, then Islam.
Okay, thank you, Steph, letting me ask you more questions. According to reports, there are still civilians in Aleppo's Kurdish neighborhoods, and some of them have been detained. I wonder if there is a specific mechanism monitoring the situation when it comes to the safety of the...
We have humanitarian teams on the ground trying to reach all those people who need it, and they're based in Aleppo, so we'll see what information and what we're trying to see also what access they can actually have.
Same for the detained people too?
Sorry?
There are also some civilians detained by the HTS.
No, I don't know if they have the authority to check on their detainees, but they are looking at the overall humanitarian situation.
This is the last one, I promise. Around 200...
Don't give me promises you can't keep.
Okay, we'll see. So around 200,000 people according to local resources, but you said 119,000 people displaced. So does the Secretary General view this as an attempt to change the demographic structure in Syria, in Aleppo?
I don't know what is motivating the situation. What we do know is that there continues to be episodes during which ethnic minorities in Syria feel unsafe and are attacked, and that's what is very concerning to us. Islam, and then we'll go to lunch.
British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has reportedly been asked to sit on the Board of Peace for Gaza. The question is the UN ever been consulted regarding Board of Peace, as Trump explains that?
In terms of the composition of the Board of Peace?
In terms of composition or any...
No, I mean, the Board of Peace, as you know,
the
Board of Peace was mentioned in the Security Council resolution relating to the ceasefire. As far as I know, we've not been consulted on the composition of that board. Okay, enjoy your day.